she will start opening to the public right now. And again, thank you very much. My name is Jorge Ferraez, publisher of Latino Leaders Magazine, and I'm very, very happy to be having as co-host with me Jimena Vivanco, our editor for the magazine. And we are very excited to have this afternoon a great trio of leaders in technology, all Latinas, which is a fantastic combination, I guess, and I think. And this is part of the celebration of the unveiling of our edition about Latinas that is going to be circulating later this month. But we are very happy. So let me just introduce our panel, and they are going to introduce themselves in terms of the role that they're playing in their companies. But I just want to mention who they are and what position they have. So we have Sandra Lopez from Intel, and she is currently the Vice President for Sports and General Manager for sports. I hope I said that.
You got it right.
You got it right. Exactly. Thank you, Sandra, for being with us and joining in this panel. Also, we have with us Gabriela Reyes. She's in the marketing team of Latinas in Tech, a great organization that she will explain to us in a little bit, but responsible for many of the Latinas that we have identified in this industry. And we also have the privilege of having Deliana Escobari, who is a software engineer for Microsoft. Another great company, software tech. I mean, those like Microsoft and Intel are always writing the future for us, especially in this time. So, ladies, thank you very much for joining us. It is a privilege. And before launching the first topic or the first question, I will go back and ask Sandra if she can explain to us a little bit of what is her role in Intel, and then we'll go with Gabriela, and then at the end with Deliana.
Yeah, so I work for Intel. It's such a service to work for Intel because Intel as a company is creating the future, and more specifically, my team and my team's responsibility is to establish a new business, more specifically around immersive media. And really what that provides is we are all individuals and we all want to see and experience content from our personalized perspective. So we work with NFL, NBA, global football, Real Madrid, La Liga, etc. So eventually we want to be able to put you in the hands of the perspective of the experience that you want to experience. So responsible for Intel Sports on the business side. Oops, you're mute.
You might be on mute.
Jorge, you're mute.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just noticed it. Thank you, Sandra. Now let's go with Gabriela.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I'm Gabriela Reyes, the head of marketing for Latinas in Tech. I'm based out of San Francisco Bay Area, but currently in Miami, my hometown. I was born in Quito, Ecuador. So any Ecuadorians, fill the chat with hearts. I love to hear our country represented, at least in this industry and in the country. And quickly about Latinas in Tech. Well, our mission is to increase the representation of Latinas in the tech industry. But in addition to that, it's also to support through community resources, through education, and through partnerships with tech companies to make sure that Latinas are also moving up the corporate ladder, or better yet, starting their own entrepreneurial ventures. So we do that through professional development, recruitment, and mentorship programs. So Sandra and Deliana, I'd love to later connect to see how we can bring you in to support our community, of course. And just delighted to be here and get right to the topic.
All right. Thank you very much, Gabriela. Deliana, please.
Hola a todos. My name is Deliana. I am a software engineer at this little company called Microsoft. I work for a team that builds and ships Visual Studio, which is a tool used by other coders to code. It's really exciting. Our customers are other coders, so I'm in with the right crowd. I am originally from Bolivia. I moved here after high school. And yeah, I lived in Chicago for a while, but now I'm new to Washington.
Wow. Well, welcome too, and thank you very much for joining us. So let's jump into the first topic that I would like to talk to you, how come we are having, I don't know, we feel that, of course, if I'm wrong, you will correct me, but I think we're feeling that there is like a good moment for Latinas in the high-tech industry. We have some good examples. We have interviewed, for example, from our standpoint, we have interviewed many of them in different companies. How do you see these, if it's true or not, from your own different perspectives? And let's go back to Sandra, if so we can make the rounds.
I don't think we're doing well. Just recently, I was on the phone with Sid Wilson from USED, and we were talking about corporate board positions and the representation of Latinas specifically. And he shared this stat with me. He said 0.8% of Latinas are on boards. And then on the African-American female side, it's 3%. And the reason why I find that really important is that ultimately boards and at the C level, they're making the decisions. They are sponsoring the next generation of leaderships. And I think we need to flip that narrative. Corporations, both public and private, are doing a really great job of filling the pipeline and entry level, but we see a significant gap when you go into middle management and into the executive suite. And if the executive suite is the suite that is making decisions, and they're networking, and a lot of the C-level, vice president level positions are through networks, we need to have much higher representation. So I would like to challenge us that what we see today is not good enough of Latinas. We really need to make sure that we not only build the pipeline, we retain, and we get the C-level to sponsor Latinas, Latinos, as well as the underrepresented minorities to the next level of leadership.
Okay. Gabriela, could you share your thoughts on the same topic?
I mean, +1 to Sandra. I think in that effort to just kind of like recognize when a partner at the table says the right thing, I'm just going to say yes to all of that. And then like something that really helped me when I was back at my at the Sheryl Sandberg Foundation on the Lean In team, working with McKinsey for the Women in the Workplace study, realizing that it's no longer, and it hasn't been for quite some time, about the glass ceiling, but rather about the broken rung. And that step from entry level to mid-level to then the like senior leadership or C-suite. And really that's exactly the type of work that we do at Latinas in Tech, is ensuring for that inclusion, belonging, but also closing the leaky pipeline. But that's, I mean, I don't want to expand because I think Sandra said it extremely well there. So +1,000 to you, Sandra.
All right. Deliana.
Yes, I think Sandra nailed it. That's the thing, and I can see it from the trenches at the entry level, sort of like coming onto like a senior developer role. It seems on the surface pretty well. I see a lot of other Latina women, but as you climb up the ladder, the percentage representation starts to drop, and a lot. And I think it matters a lot because not just for being picked as, say, a next level, like going up the ladder, it's also us visualizing ourselves. So sometimes it's hard to see how I would perform in a position like that if I have zero context, zero examples to go off of. So I may maybe subconsciously decide to do something else because it's just more familiar. So that's really hard. And I think everybody, not just Latino women, are recognizing that that's the case, and we're trying to work on it, but it's something that's really hard to change because it's something that we're not used to. We don't see it all the time. So yeah, if anybody has any ideas how to make it better, all I know is that the more we continue to have the conversation, the more we continue having it top of mind, the better results we're going to see in the long run.
Now, going back to the reason of why could this be? I mean, it's been something that is being there for a long time. I mean, still, we all know that for many areas, almost in every single area, the Latino population is not yet still represented as it should be. At least mirroring the consumers of those companies, at least mirroring what other minorities are being represented with, maybe within the same company even. So why is this? I mean, when I have interviewed people and asking this, especially non-Latinos, sometimes they say, well, the pipeline needs to be, better. We need to know more people, or we need to expand our knowledge on that. And I know that many corporations, maybe Intel or Microsoft have policies similar, are very active in looking and trying to recruit these diversified talent. But what could be happening? What do you think is the problem that we have here, Sandra?
Well, I'm going to speak to a personal issue that I had to overcome. It's a great strength of our Latino community and our values, but it hinders us in business. And it's called the notion of respeto. And respeto would mean, like, don't challenge your elders, right? Your parents, your tu abuelito, abuelita. And if I was conditioned to think that way, for the beginning parts of my career, I was very quiet and reserved and challenging my boss's perspective, but they were expecting that of me. And so I had to recondition myself to be able to challenge leadership. The notion of self-promoting myself. Nobody's going to do it for you. And you have to get comfortable. So I would say, yes, in some scenarios, like the pipeline exists. Just ask your network, and you can work with Gabriela, her organization. She'll find you amazing, talented individuals. There's organizations that know of talent. I also think, and Deliana, I was listening to you, and I'm like, no, you're going to be our next C-level, like, software, chief software officer, right?
I'm going to try.
Great, right? Like, I'm going to send a note. I have some executives that I know at Microsoft. I'm going to send them a note. Get to know Deliana. But I do think that we have to be, as Latinos, a little bit more aggressive. And I know a lot of my colleagues were much more reserved. We're much more respectful. And I had to go through executive training to rewire myself and that value of respect. Though you can still challenge your executives in a slightly different manner without having, like, my dad, whisper me, that's not how, you shouldn't challenge them. You shouldn't think about that. Don't ask them questions. So a little bit was how I was raised and the readjustment. And when I talk to my Latino colleagues, they'll say, see, like, it happens, and it's something that we should just be cognizant of and leverage the tools that will help us overcome. So we will raise our hand, we will challenge perspective in a very respectful way of what we're taught, and open the doors for ourselves, and then shatter that glass ceiling.
Yeah. So it could be something more than a glass ceiling. It could be something that is more within us, and that we need to be more, daring.
Yeah, and we're taught hierarchy, right? Patriarch, right? The male and the family. Think about how we are all raised, and it's a great, the value of respect, though, is a tremendous value that we all carry with us. But the recognition that maybe in business it could be a hindrance, and so how do you overcome that and still move the ball forward and challenge executive ranks in a very respectful way?
Now, Gabriela, from your standpoint, I mean, the fact of having been born in Ecuador, and all the process that you should have passed through to come here and establish yourself as a professional, and then start working in Latinas in tech, and then seeing I guess your organization is at the epicenter of all these that we're discussing. So what do you think are the reasons, and what do you think we should do about it?
Well, I'm really happy right now because I'm reading Cecilia Muñoz's book, More Than Ready. if any of you have had a chance to read it yet, but she's actually, I'm like halfway through. And I think the way she puts it is that like, or at least from what my understanding is, for such a long time, at least like my elders who've been opening these doors into the corporate white American world, they've been assimilating all this time. I mean, she has this great like metaphor about like shouldering in and even adopting more masculine traits and so on. So I think less than like to answer your question about like what's the reason, but I think like focusing on what's the way forward. I think especially for like for millennials and for the new generation coming in is understanding and appreciating all the work that these generations have done to open the door. But then it's like, I would just put myself in there. It's on us to start to expand the definition of what like corporate good like business practice is, and start like identifying the traits that no longer serve us. Just like Sandra said about respeto, I think there's so many. I mean, I talked to my grandmother and she just wants me to only feel gratitude about simply having a job. And sometimes I've talked to her about, you know, like culture at work and flexibility and my mobility and all of that. And she's like, no, don't go there. You should just be grateful for the little bit that you have. And almost like you have to be this niña buena and never question it. And it's a conversation with her that I realize I've been having a lot with my my mentors who are older than me, some Latina, some Latino, some white men all over. But having that conversation of, I'm actually coming to this place of reconciliation, of like acceptance of what in my culture serves me, like my work ethic, for example. That's something I put into practice and I prove it with my results. But then there are other traits that I just really need to start shedding and then bring that in to reshape that standard of what corporate America looks like right now. So apologies, I didn't give you the like reason necessarily. I think plenty of like really excellent studies do that, but at least that's my personal take with my experience with community orgs and especially with Latinas in tech now, understanding like what's the way forward and how can we start moving on it already. And I guess that's like a very tech approach of like, we don't need to spend too much time, you know, dissecting. Let's just like try this, test it, and keep optimizing as we go.
All right. From your own perspective, Deliana, I mean, I know, I mean, you work for this little company that you mentioned before, as well as Sandra, that is another little company, you know, that nobody knows. But what do you see from your perspective on what could be the reason and what can be done from your own personal experience as, you know, being born in Latin America and then come here? How do you see that?
Well, from my personal experience, I think one of the biggest reasons was this notion of that world is not for me. And I think we have it as immigrants or as, let's say, non-white. Sometimes we think that that those things are not created for us, so we don't even want to even think. So for example, for undergrad, I went through accounting because somebody told me there's a lot of jobs in accounting, you should do that, and that felt more inviting than what I really was curious about, which was computer programming. But I thought I didn't grow up with a computer, so that probably is not for me. And then you can see already from like a really young age, there's a disadvantage versus kids that grew up thinking like, yeah, this computer is for me to break and put back together. So like already there was a little bit of hesitance to even jump into the tech world. And I think that just kind of cements over time because you are kind of like ranking against people that have been kind of playing with it for the longest time. And it's hard to overcome that feeling of like, I basically just got into this last year. I don't even know if I'm ready for this. And those hesitations tend to show in our actions. So it's really, it's been really tough for me to get over sort of that imposter syndrome because of that history that in my mind I'm also building up.
Yeah. Now, the world once you're there, of course, and we can always go back to the topic of how can we increase diversity and Latino presence in all levels in the high-tech industry and high-tech world. But your world is fascinating, and especially in these recent months in which everybody has to depend heavily on technology to carry on, not only with work, with life, right? With human emotions, with human relations, with productivity, with cash flow. Everything has to do with technology now. So in that sense, Sandra, how does it look, the challenge for you? I mean, one of these times that you and me had a conversation, you mentioned to me that passion was something that was a big element for everybody, every leader's career. But how do you understand the world of technology and the role that you are playing and women are playing there?
Yeah, so, you know, technology, if you think about the history and what it's done, it's connect us. And at Intel, we're committed to creating like world-changing technologies that will positively impact every person on Earth. And I would argue, you know, about 2 or 3 years ago, the tech industry at large was getting a bad rap for many different reasons. And to your point, technology, I believe, is the unsung hero in COVID. Technology is providing access to education for our kids. I have a 10-year-old daughter. She's going virtual. Imagine if we didn't have technology in that scenario. You talked about collaboration. Now, this is our new way that we're doing meetings now, right? So Zoom is becoming a noun, a verb. And so, and then you think about just access to like mental health and all the tools that are out there and applications in terms of headspace. So I would say that technology is helping us stay somewhat sane. And I think now more than ever, as we look forward, it's how do we take what we're learning during this time of COVID, Black Lives Matters, to create a new normal, to understand and recognize, even there's people that are disadvantaged. Some people don't have PCs. Some of the children in education don't have access to PC, or maybe they have a PC, but they don't have access to the network. And accessibility to all is important to address the disparity that exists. And often the disparity exists is underrepresented minorities, African American, Latinos. And so I think positive story around technology, but also a recognition that there is a severe gap and divide and inequality. And what are we going to do about that? What is our charter? And I think Black Lives Matters is an excellent catalyst to begin to address some of the societal injustices that exist in today's society in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Now, as you mentioned, yes, I mean, technology is now the world and the word to use. But for example, Gabriela, you use technology to market, and digital marketing has been a real force behind many of the changing of the paradigms that we have now, or we used to have in society, like, for example, retail business, print business like ourselves, our company, many others that have suffered because of the emergence of digital marketing. But also, on the other hand, we have businesses that have arisen, and without digital marketing, they would never have been able to do what they do. The other day, I was talking to a friend of mine that works in one of these quick service restaurant chains. They deliver pizzas. And he was telling me, all of us have been having a great year so far. The ones suffering are the dine-ins, but the ones who deliver and sell, food through a window, or you can stop by and take your food home, or you can be delivered, they are doing better than last year. So how do you see that from your own experience as a marketing, digital marketer?
I think it goes back to that topic of equity and access, for sure. I mean, I think that's why I thought like plenty of programs like Google, I forget, Google has a great one where they're focused on marginalized communities and getting them access and education to like the smaller scale programs that they have to increase that visibility for these, let's say like dine-in or even brick and mortars. That's a like fantastic question. I wish I could have a little bit more time to think on it, but just to like follow Sandra's lead on that, I think technology is a great connector. It's, you know, untapped potential, essentially. And I would just say with, you know, back to like Spider-Man, like with great responsibility, I mean, with great power comes great responsibility. I think it's no longer new, and plenty of us and the world at large is still thinking at it like, wow, it's still new. We're still catching up to like its effects, but I think we've already been watching for some time. And I think it's something for, you know, like the big tech companies, but even small tech as they're developing to recognize the power you have and create and design for, you know, with full access for like all of the communities and not just for, let's say, like the 80% of users that will, you know, pick up your product. So I think it's the way I think about technology now, and even digital marketing, is how to make it accessible to all the community, especially, and adopt an equitable approach. Like think about who really could use it, and then not just go for like the easy surface level or lighter lift. Apologies if that didn't totally answer your question.
Well, yeah, of course, it's a good perspective of that, and also for the whole phenomenon of digital marketing and the social media thing. I mean, many things are different now from there were 6 months ago, right? Right now, it's a complete different panorama because of that. Now, on the side of the technological profession, that I know, I mean, so every time that we were putting together this panel and talking about Latinas in tech, say, well, if you ask me, I guess that most of the people will imagine that this is a men's job, not a women's job, right? When you talk about an engineer or even a gamer, you always imagine a boy or a man. But so Deliana, my question to you would be, what is it in your brain? What is that satisfaction and that passion that you feel? For example, if I were talking to I don't know, an architect, he will tell me, oh, my passion is to design buildings, because then I later come to the building and see and how that interacts with humans. And if I'm talking to a lawyer, he could tell me, no, I'm enjoy reviewing the laws and finding ways to defend something or to put a case. In a case of you as a software engineer, what is, describe to all of us that we are not engineers and not software technicians, what is the passion that you feel? What is the everyday work that gets you out of bed every single day, motivated and happy to go?
Well, I think this is a pretty gender neutral question, because it doesn't, I don't think it's particular to men or women, I guess. Why I really love computer programming. I really just enjoy solving problems. That was one of the biggest attractions to becoming an engineer. It didn't matter what industry, like you are given a problem and it's like a puzzle that you need to solve. And just the satisfaction of making something out of nothing was really fantastic to me. But I do think that my gender does play a role, and my ethnicity does play a role in my position as an engineer, because we are designing solutions for a market, and that market is not just men. Even if it's a game, it's having somebody like me on the team then I bring in that perspective to create a solution that also will maybe cater to more gamer women, and all of a sudden, like the people actually buying into the product will also start to change, because now it's a product designed for them as well. 5 months ago, I became a mom, and I started using a bunch of our tools just one-handed, and I realized that designing for accessibility is really important, because all of a sudden the keyboard even looked different to me. And now that perspective added to other things in my background, I feel like it makes it so much more interesting to design a solution. Yeah.
Now we were having little problems in your audio. I don't know if there's something that you're moving or something, but it kind of hears a little bit cut. But yeah, we got most of the message there. Now
you're putting the engineer to work, Jorge. You're putting Deliana. She likes problems. Now she's going to solve her audio.
Yeah, for sure. I'm troubleshooting right now.
now we got you. We get you well. Sandra, what is a typical day for you? I mean, what do you see? What kind of deals do you have to make? How do you build a team to pursue the objectives of your area or your department? How do you make those decisions?
God, I'm going to keep it short. First, when you're in the world of technology, every day looks different. I always laugh. I have my month planned of what I want to get accomplished, and then the week. And my office always knows that by Wednesday, we're reframing everything. So plan for the unexpected in the world of technology. But really, like, we're committed to understanding and serving our partners and serving the audience that we serve. In this case, it's avid sports fans. And when we look at bringing new markets, it's understanding how do we bring it collectively with our strategic partners, whether it's the leagues, whether it's cloud providers, whether it's infrastructure, and sitting there and understanding what are they trying to get accomplished. I always believe, like, in the world of business development, in the world of sales, is have acute understanding of your partner and what a win looks like for them, and understand what a win looks like for you, and how do you drive those synergies. And so we spend a lot of time, our team, externally facing and driving the new market. And with regards to internally and building your team, oftentimes I look at the resume, but I just scan. I hire the person. You can train how to become a great business development person. You can learn how to become an engineer, but you're ingrained with values. And so I tend to hire people that are truth, ethical, passion, creative students of their trade. You know, in technology, we're all like Daniela will understand this. We're always creating something new. So the past doesn't exist. So you have to really believe in the student mentality. I'm a big believer that I'm a big advocate of servant leadership. I'm in service to the stakeholders. I'm in service to my team members. You know, if they're asking me to move I say this in all interviews, if you wanted me to move a trash can, I will move that trash can to make it happen. I'm no better than, I'm equal to all of my colleagues. And I really seek to bring values-based individuals that are committed to our mission, that really believe in what we're trying to get done in the business. And then everything else will come into play. So I strive on building high-performing teams, and you know, how they get the job done, it's up to them. They're all their own employers, but as long as we're doing it for the team and for the greater cause, and we're out to win championships.
I have always admired, you know, leaders, especially Latina leaders that are also mothers and wives, and you know, they have a home that they need to keep up and maintain and all that. That's always admirable. So the balance of working should be difficult, right? And especially
men are picking up. I would say I'm pleasantly surprised by my generation. I'm, you know, the Gen Xer. As much as we talk of females, I wouldn't be where I'm at without the father of my child. that is absolutely true. And that doesn't get acknowledged. And I wouldn't be where I'm at without the support of my office, and my family and friends. And so I always tell people that the biggest advice that I have is always ask for help. And don't be ashamed, because the sign of a great leader is when you know that you can't get that job done, or you need help with your child for XYZ because you're on a business trip. And you become much more human. And then you realize your other team members can ask for help, and then we're all in it together. So we're all juggling. We all have our life stories, and so yes, the multi-headed job that we have, our jobs, a mother, a wife, or a partner, or in some cases, we're a servant to our parents, being a daughter.
Gabriela, what are the your generation is one that is building things, right? I think previous generations are passing away in terms of that the technology, the frames, the concepts that they built are starting to become a little obsolete sometimes, especially in technology. So what are the arguments that you use in Latinas in Tech to convince either organizations or Latinas and members to join your fight, to join your advocacy?
Yes, that's actually something I center a lot of our dialogues with our tech partners. The great thing is that I think the industry as a whole is so data driven. So that's typically how I approach my say like persuasive arguments on how to incorporate like the new audiences, especially the one like incoming generation. And I was actually thinking a lot about what's my day looking like. And I would say, just as Sandra, like always in service of others. I think also just adopting that like student growth mindset, partly because of my age, but also just because I think it's so, perhaps this is something I've learned from my mom, is just so important to always be so open-minded and humble, and understand that like, even though you may have, like 5, 6, 10, 20, 40 years of experience in that one niche like domain, it's always important to continue evolving and seeking out new resources. And what that looks like in practice for me is understanding that Latinas in Tech is a community organization at the intersection of tech and the brand new word of like DE&I, and understanding that like just my lived experience of being a Latina, being bisexual and immigrant, Spanish native, also bilingual, like that doesn't make me extremely well informed or a subject matter expert to lead some of the conversations that our tech partners are looking at us to have with. So that just means I think I spend about like 2 hours of my day just reading on new reports and just especially journals. My background is in psychology, and I love reading like peer-reviewed like primary source docs. So back to that question about lifestyle, or not lifestyle, but a day in a life, I think I just am constantly trying to find touch points with the community that we serve. And it's quite easy because it's a nonprofit, so we always are serving. But that's at least how I've approached it, and I'm curious to see, if any of that resonates with the participants right now.
No, you have participated in lectures and speeches, and you always put the what you call the human equity, right, first. And you just mentioned the intersection of Latinas and tech and all that. But how about the intersection of human and tech? That's something that should be fascinating for you, all of you that are working in tech, because I mean, you cannot understand one without the other, right?
Yeah, I think I would want to just clarify, when you say human, do you mean like the human experience, or like user experience? What just want to understand the question a little better.
Well, just the human side of technology, because one of the general fears out there is that the technology ends up eating up the human side, and everybody will become like robots and zombies, and the artificial intelligence is going to overwhelm the human brain, and everybody will be dominated by technology one day. And I have heard from many brilliant minds that that would be impossible. I don't know what you think. Of course, it would be interesting to discuss a little bit about this, but that's what I mean. Where the technology needs to go, taking in account that is designed for humans, by humans for humans, right?
Right. I mean, I see it as it's a tool that we create for ourselves. I mean, sure, sometimes it can get out of hand, and it has that like there is that real danger. But I think I'm ready to pass the mic to the women in tech, and not just tech adjacent. Maybe you have a stronger perspective on that.
Yeah.
Well, I would say this is why we need psychology and sociologists, people in development of technology. This is why you talk about Latinas in tech. You need Latinas in the room to represent the Latino community and Latinos in the room, because when you start, and I'll let Deliana talk about AI and algorithms, when you create these algorithms, you are injecting biases that exist. So if you're in a room that are all white men, they're not taking into consideration the global implications. So what happened, like autonomous car, there's an example, like if you're having an autonomous car and you have to make the decision to hit a cow or hit a family, and it's in Asia. Cows are sacred in Asia, right? So I think there is massive implication in terms of, you talk about the human element of technology, understanding the impact, and you can't understand it unless you have a diverse room, and you also need to bring psychologists and sociologists, which is rarely talked about in the tech industry, into the conversation. But Daniela, you might have a point of view as you're creating software for the masses.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, very well.
So yeah, I agree with both of you in the sense that having a diverse team will for sure produce a deeper answer, like a solution that caters better to different groups. I don't know if you guys heard me in my example before, but I have a 5-month-old baby, and since having her, I've been learning to do a lot of things one-handed, and I've been using a lot of the accessibility features that we designed for, and it kind of brought a new layer of understanding of how design helps a certain type of people depending on who you design for. Yeah. So then going back to like having different people in the room, yeah, engineers also have a type of mindset, and a lot of times what we're thinking of is, what is the limit of where I can take this technology? I want to go there, I want to do that. And we sometimes don't stop to think about the repercussions. Like, I think Facebook is a really good example. I think it's a very engineer-driven company, and many times it's just thinking of, how can we get more users on the platform? How can we get more users to stay in the platform? But over time, it just kind of became this thing where the answer is more people stay in the platform if they're angry, or more people stay in the platform if they're having like fights with each other. So in that perspective, we need people to bring in a different input, not just of what can we do. So from that perspective, yeah, we need.
Now, in that sense, Deliana, in that sense, I mean, you as an engineer, you are designing the future, right? I mean, the programs, the systems, the concept that you are creating in Microsoft are going to be out, that technology, that service, that concept, that idea, and it will become maybe part of everybody's everyday life. So how do you imagine the future? What specifically in this interaction between humans and technology? How do you imagine? How do you think it should be?
Well, I can't say for sure, obviously, but what I do think is that the more I'm in this industry, the more I realize that sort of my social values need to be top of mind, because we are designing the future, but we should be designing the future for everyone. And if anything, this pandemic has been a great example of how some communities just don't have the same level of access. So whereas the classroom before was somewhat of an equalizer, because all the kids could go and learn in the same setting, now it's like a kid with a better internet connection can do much better than a kid without one, or a kid that has 3 siblings like will probably not get the same level of attention from like help from their parents, that kind of stuff. Like I can come up with a million examples, but what I'm thinking is we need to continue to think of technology as something that has to reach everyone. And a lot of times the bleeding edge of technology is just thinking of that very small percentage of adopters. So we have to stay vigilant all the time, think about everyone that is underserved.
That's a great point. Now I want to invite Jimena, our editor, because she has also some questions, and she will also later read some of the questions from the people that are watching this live panel. So Jimena, let's go.
So I just want to say that I'm loving this whole webinar just because it's amazing to see the 2 different visions and experiences coming from the top with Sandra, and then having like our future Latina leaders like Deliana and Gabriela working with them. I think these are conversations that need to happen more, especially bridging, you know, between mentorships and generational gaps, especially between and within the Latino community. I think it's awesome. And I'm just curious, Deliana, going on with your conversation about how technology should be and is for everyone, I want to touch the point about Black Lives Matter. So I want to see what your thoughts are on, as Latinas, as a Latino community, what is our role right now, or why is our role so important right now, especially in the technology industry, when it comes to working together with the Black community, and why is it so important, especially right now and the future?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I've been the latest events happening in the country are certainly not new, so that's where a little bit of shame comes, because we've seen these type of stories happen before, but it's just now that it's starting to sort of resonate really loudly with everyone. So I use this time to also learn a little bit more about what affects the Black community, and it made me realize that I was a little bit complacent before, because as an immigrant, we do experience hardships as well, but they are not exactly the same. So this was a great opportunity to learn how systemic racism has affected Black communities, and it's quite different from the racism or hardships that we experience as immigrants. And the second thing that I've kind of reflected on is how much work we also have to do in our own communities, because when I speak with my parents in Bolivia or family members in Bolivia, I still realize that there's a lot of, there's classism, there's racism, there's a little bit of misogynist culture still, and it is so ingrained that we've internalized a lot of them. Like a very small example is like my mom always asked me to help out with the dishes, but now my brothers, and she's like, well, they're boys. So it's like, it's just how life is sometimes, but it really isn't. And we should start calling it out. I mean, I don't mean to start a fight with everybody, but there should be a way to kind of like note to other people that this affects us, and how, like tie it up to how. Like as women in tech, we're expected to perform, but also we're expected to be really good mothers and to like keep the house clean. It's like, that is not really fair. So I think to start to tie into these different views, and we won't start seeing change unless we start to have these conversations.
Anyone else, Gabriela or Sandra, that want to say anything about that?
I sure would, because that's been, I mean, it's topic that's been top of mind. I joined Latinas in Tech early May, and that was the first project that I decided to project manage on how to look at racial equity from the lens of a community organization touching the tech industry. And I think I actually had this discussion with my 17-year-old sister this morning, and she's like, well, why do you think we as Latinos are so racist? And I had to think on as like, well, I've been dissecting this in so many ways, right? Like so much as like healing that we need to do of our own colonization and like where we come from. A lot of it is just inherited. And again, back to like the things that no longer serve us and recognizing them and letting them go. And her solution, I love it. She's like, just don't be it. Like the moment you recognize it, let it go. And I loved it. It's like, wow, you're 17 and you have that. And this is why, I'm going to continue to like pick your brain on these matters because you're shaping it. And then like for at least what that looks like at Latinas in Tech, we decided to put together a program series focused on the Afro-Latina in Tech experience. Mm-hmm. And we started with a listening hour actually it was for the first time as an org that we created that platform to bring in those perspectives. And it was challenging for a lot of our board members, even for our leadership with our amazing co-founder Rocio, of recognizing that we are majority white Latinas and that we're not just white passing, we are white. A lot of us are also, Hispanic from Europe or Spanish, and recognizing that it's not a mutually exclusive fight. It's not like we have to, advocate for Latinx communities and we can't do it for Black, or worse, we can't even, heal our own identity. It can all happen at once. And I also am a big believer in that, like, you can learn and act as you go. You don't have to kind of just stay learning and say, oh, I see it, I recognize it, but that's the way it is. So to that point, Deliana, you had it. Like, it's just recognizing it and quickly acting. And I love that about tech. Like, you recognize a problem and you fix it. You're not going to like stay too long on it without a solution. But thanks for bringing that up, Jimena, for sure. I think more Latinx communities, and especially for influential organizations like Latino Leaders Magazine, should be bringing this topic front and center because of that potential to influence and really affect change through conversation. So again, thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for your answer. Yeah, so and I'm excited just to see how as time goes, to see top executives or leaders within the tech industry be more diverse, especially because I think products and the use of products and the reach of these products will definitely just expand and become more inclusive. So I think that's why as well tech is just such an important industry when it comes to this. So I just want to go into some questions that the public is sending out. And I think a few of them have a lot to do with some advice on how to get a seat at a table. I don't know if, Sandra, maybe you have experience on this, but so the question is, what's your advice on getting a seat at the table for company initiatives, either with a formal position of authority or not, project manager versus engineer?
I would say you have to ask. And the best way to get that seat at the table is find a sponsor. And oftentimes people will say, I have a mentor. Well, mentor advises, a sponsor will advocate. And you should work directly with your manager to say, look, I want to grow and I want to help the company grow. Because you always want to say, like, what's in it for them? And it's about company growth. And I'm looking at opportunities and I really want to explore this area. Can you help advocate for me? Right? And then when you have the seat at the table, it may not mean that you belong. So that's the other thing, is you can have a seat at the table and you can have they're physically present, but are they really listening to you and hearing your perspective? And that is where you need to engage that community, whatever project that you're working on, and make sure that you find a way to have your voice heard. You may need to find that director, that leader that's going to help you along the journey. And so I would argue you have to ask, and you have to proactively ask to find that sponsor. And that goes back to my point about just help. And that's how you get a seat at the table. And when you get the seat at the table, just realize that you're not on an equal footing, right? You're gonna have to work extra hard because you're not the male and you're not at the white male. And I'm not male bashing. It is the reality. You're on an unlevel playing field. The quicker you realize that, you know you have to do more work, be more poised, ask the most strategic question that people will turn around like, wow, she's smart. So it's all a professional strategy of how do you get ahead in any type of business, whether it's a new startup or whether it's a large corporation like Microsoft and Intel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Deliana, I think that I'm excited to see where you go from where you are right now. I think you will do amazing. So leading on what Sandra said and about this talk about, moving up within a company or wherever you want to go, what are some things, do you think that, as in your experience, what are your experiences asking? Have you what are some of the challenges for you that you see personally or other team members, if you want to move up, what are some of those challenges that you see right now?
Well, personally for me, I think I see software engineering as like the same way you would see carpentry. So you can't just like read about carpentry and be a good carpenter. Like you still have to spend some years, some time, some experiences to kind of get really good at it. So for me, I think a challenge is to get that level of experience. And that is also not a passive thing. It's not just sitting in my position and I'll be a good carpenter one day. You do have to look for the things that will get you to that next level through experience. So you kind of have to keep an eye on what projects are interesting, what technologies are teams working with, and position yourself to be there to really do those things. And that hopefully will give you the skills that you need to also, be that qualified person at the table, because like you need a combination of those things. You need a sponsor to get you at the table, but once you're there, you have to be ready. And to me, that means having that tool set ready to go. So that's
just one thing about being ready that I want to add, Deliana. Let me give you this one piece of advice. Men will raise their hand even if they're not ready. So sometimes fake it till you make it and build out that network to make it happen. I'm telling you, the females will not apply for a job unless they check all the boxes.
It's so true though.
And men don't do that.
It is true. Even, this is obviously not the first time I've heard somebody said that. Like I've read about this a lot, but it is hard to sort of, it's almost like putting yourself out there, but you're kind of worried that they're going to find the weaknesses. So it is hard, but I will say I am practicing kind of feeling that 60% level of confidence and saying, I want to do it. Like put me in on it. And it's been working really well. A lot of times we don't know that we actually have learned quite a bit in our like under my eyes, a short work experience, but yeah, I think I've been doing
the same.
well.
And to Sandra, like I'm sorry, I promise I'm not a paid influencer for Cecilia Muñoz's book. I'm really not. But I loved her title because it's that, more than ready. Like you think about it, like we already over prepare as women. And I believe it's 60% of, I think it's like women don't apply to jobs unless they are 100 and men apply at like 60%. So like to that, and just said on another point, like I've been love seeing, not like us not subscribing to that white feminist approach of get yourself a seat at that table, pull up a chair, build your own table. So build your own team on like the sidelines if you need to. If you see another like Latina in a different team, grab a coffee with her and get your ideas through just to understand like what other teams are working on, and then see if there are synergies. because that will only strengthen any argument that you have for approaching a product a certain way. At least that's like what I've learned being in white women dominated organizations as a Latina. Let's add that.
What a great conversation this has been. I think we have discussed many ideas, many advices. I would love to stop in each one of them and dig deeper into some of these ideas, but of course we only have 1 hour and we don't want to abuse your time and your experiences sharing. So I just want to say thank you very much. I would like to give one last opportunity for the three of you just to share maybe a closing comment or a good advice that you would give someone, or if you prefer to just say something related to how do you see the future in these. But please go ahead so we can wrap up.
I'll give the advice that I give everybody. They ask like, how did you become a vice president? I'll tell you, it's very simple. 40% is your network. It's that simple. The other 50% is when you show up, deliver and execute, so prove your worth, and the other 10% is just luck. So oftentimes we do not network. Latinos are really good at socializing. So flex your social muscle and network. I always talk about inside, outside, and wide. So females tend to try to build deep relationships. No, that's not how it works in business. You want a breadth of network. So that person is you can ask for advice, may identify you for an opportunity. So I think you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have a couple of us right now. You can link in with us and build your network automatically.
Exactly. Thank you, Sandra. Deliana, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I guess a sort of, I don't know if it's advice, but if you are interested in switching from any one field into tech, I have done it. I used to be an accountant on my first job and realized pretty quickly that it wasn't for me. And I began my journey to get into tech, and breaking into the tech world was not easy, but it is possible. So if you want to reach out, I'm happy. I'm on LinkedIn. Send me a message and we can talk about your experience and hopefully take it from there.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Deliana. Gabriela.
Yes, I think it's that whether it's your first job or you're a senior in college. I don't know like who's really in the audience or the age group there, but that's something that like I've learned, that you're never too young or too like inexperienced to support someone and bring someone up with you. So I think that's where I'm at. For a long time I was like, no, I need to get to like VP or senior director in order to like, participate in these conversations or pull other individuals who reach out to me up. But no, I'm also more than ready to already engage and do that bit. So if anyone is young and questioning whether they can mentor or sponsor, the answer is yes, and just make yourself available.
All right. Well, I really want to thank the three of you for sharing this time, sharing your visions, your experiences. We really appreciate it. We believe that we are doing a good effort to reach a lot of people that sometimes benefit from advice, sometimes benefit from listening to other experiences, and we can put out there a little granito de arena for these people to become leaders as well as you are. So thank you again for your great time, your great concepts. We are really appreciative of that. I also want to recognize the work of my team, Jimena as editor, and Paola Aleman, who is the coordinator of our digital events. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon, and I hope to see you soon in the near future.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.